Greetings, and welcome to When the Moment Chooses You. I am your host, Coach Charlene, and I am extremely excited. Today, I have Miss Claudia Garcia, the one and only, joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you joined. I met Claudia down at the Nurses Making Money Moves conference, and she's doing so many amazing things. So I am so excited that she's going to share some of her wisdom with us. And so, Claudia, I'll just set a little bit of context of why I started the podcast. It really came out of when everything, like the world, changed in 2020 with COVID-19 and the murder of George Floyd. I found my voice basically. And then I began to start sharing my story. And so that's really what it's all about because that moment of pain propelled me into purpose. And there was words that were spoken to me. What you do in this moment will determine your destiny and
Mm,
dictate your future. And so I knew at that point I was going to have to move from drama, frustration, anger to
mm.
action and impact. And that's where I found my voice and I start sharing my story. So I believe that there's moments that call us into different situations, whether it's to disrupt the system that we're working on, to disrupt ourselves, to
Yeah.
transform something. And so that's what I like unpacking here on this show. I want to go into some of your moments. So before we jump into some of your moments, can you just tell us a little bit about who is Claudia? We'll put the bio in the description.
Yeah.
However, I want to know who you are.
Well, thank you. I am a wife of 20, I think 8ish years. I have 4 kids, 3 boys, adults, and then one little girl who came in our 40s. She surprised us.
Oh,
She was a
wow.
she was a gift from heaven, and
Yes.
so she's keeping us young. So that's a little bit about my personal life. In regards to my business life, I have been in healthcare now for about 18 years and have had my business Royalty Medical Solutions for about 16 years.
Hmm.
I'm not a nurse, although I support nurses in many different capacities. One of my lines of services is private practice consulting. And so, with a lot of nurse practitioners launching their private practices, I'm able to support them. As well as I do own a boutique staffing agency. So I'm heavily involved in healthcare and I love it. And we'll talk about how I ended up there. That's one of my
Yes.
disruptive moments. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's wonderful. I'm super excited about that. So, have you always been in this industry, the healthcare industry in particular?
no, so not when I started back 18 years ago. So
Okay.
if you want me to share my
Yeah,
disruptive
let's
moment now,
jump right in
I'll
it. Let's jump right in.
okay. So I actually fell into healthcare after my husband was in a bad accident. And I had a friend of mine who said, come work at this private practice. They were a multi site medical group and they needed a bilingual front office. And I came in to help. And little did I know, I would fall in love with healthcare and helping patients. And I think part of that was because of what I was going through at home. And then, sympathizing and having that empathy for the patient that was in a similar situation. So, yeah, so that's how I ended up in
Wow.
healthcare.
Wow, that
Mhm.
is super interesting. So let's talk about let's go into when you started out like that. How did you jump into like starting your own business? And the reason why I'm asking because I know so many nurses in particular, other people too, that want to do something different. They feel like they're stuck and they just don't know what to do. What's the next step? All of the stuff and the fear and all of that that comes with having a dream and going after the dream. So let's kind of unpack that a little bit. So, how was that transition for you?
Yeah, so I would like to say that I'm one of the lucky ones that was exposed to business very early on.
Hmm.
My grandfather, an immigrant from Mexico, came to live with us after he got sober. And so he helped raise me since I was a little girl, and he was actually an entrepreneur.
Oh.
And so before So what ended up happening, I'll give you a quick story about him, but he was an entrepreneur. So he was like, I used to call him the original wholesaler, because if he didn't have money, he would go to, let's say somebody was selling, a product, he would go to them and say, if I can sell 10 of these, how much would you sell them to me for, like what's the discount? What kind of
Yes.
discount do I get? So then he would go pre-sell, then come
Hmm.
back and grab the merchandise. And so he had a really
Ah.
great system. Yeah. So, yeah. And unfortunately, he lost a 9-year-old daughter who was killed in an accident, and he became an alcoholic.
Oh,
And so
wow.
throughout the years, he was in and out of business. And when he got sober and came to live in the States, I got I guess I got the gift that my
Yeah.
mom didn't have. He made up for for the
Yes.
lost time of his kids with his grandkids, and he loved talking about business. And he
That is
always told
awesome.
me the best thing that you could ever do for yourself is own a business. And so I really took that to heart, and so I was sort of a serial entrepreneur, constantly trying to find my way as a business owner. I sold Avon. Do you remember Avon? I think it's still
Yes,
around.
I do. I
Okay.
think it is.
My mom was a nurse, and so I would send the
Ah.
books to the clinics, and all of the nurses would buy for me. So, and then I jumped into some MLM. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
prepaid legal. I jumped
Yes.
into that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
You were on a mission.
I was going to find my thing. I was going
Yeah.
to find my thing. Then my husband and I flipped houses, and we were in our 20s when we did a wholesale deal. We bought a house for $5,000 on a tax. We bought the tax lien. They had to relocate. We flipped the house in 30 days. And another
Wow.
one, yeah. And then another house we purchased that had been abandoned for many years. And then after that, we opened up a coffee shop. Yeah.
Oh my
And
God,
so
Claudia, you just like did it all, girl.
so we did 2 years of a coffee shop. I tell everyone that the coffee shop put me through business school. I
I
had no
bet.
idea, what I was going to learn, right? Because I just wanted to have a cute coffee shop where everybody could come hang out.
Oh,
And I had this dream, right?
yeah.
And then it was like, oh, we need inventory. Oh, you profit and loss. What?
Hmm.
Employee tax. What? Labor laws. What? And so I learned it all by doing it. And I
Yeah,
always tell everyone, everybody waits for that perfect moment. They're constantly preparing, 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 preparing. And the truth is, a lot of the what prepares us is the actual doing. And it's the
absolutely.
trying and the testing, it's the failing, it's the going for it. I don't really I tell everyone, like, that the coffee shop it wasn't a good investment, but I don't regret it. I think it was
Absolutely.
actually one of the best things that happened to us.
Yeah,
Um,
because it actually put you through school, so to speak,
yeah,
right? I want to ask you something before we move forward. So, okay, I'm listening to you, and like, how did you know that you didn't want to be an employee? So, were you an employee for a part of your life?
sure. Yeah. I
Oh,
actually worked for my uncle, who was a partner of a department store, kids department store, back in the 90s. And so took my first job with him at 16. And he taught me how to be a buyer in Los Angeles. And yeah, I loved working. That was the thing, is I had a really great work ethic. And I think
hmm.
you really need that in order to succeed as an entrepreneur. So I took many jobs. I worked so many. Same thing, just trying to try different things out. But at the same time, I was always trying my own thing out.
Okay, good. So you were determined to be a businesswoman, you can tell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about this a little bit because starting a business is not the easiest thing. If there's someone out there right now that wants to start a business but they don't even know where to start, what would you say to them?
Wow. So
I
that's
know.
kind of a loaded question, because there are so many different types of businesses. Uh,
Yes.
for me, I like to talk to the healthcare consultant, because that's what I have found success in the last 16 years. I first started my business marketing providers, specialists to referring practices. And then I started doing their credentialing and contracting. I hired an entire team that had the experience, and we credentialed probably like thousands of doctors in Southern California. And then about 7 years ago, I added staffing because it was a demand. So there, every time I spoke to a provider, he's like, I need you to help me find somebody. I need you to help me find somebody. So I'm still doing that till today. I don't do the credentialing and contracting, I only consult on it. But I'm still doing staffing and staffing strategies. And yeah, so for a
Wow.
healthcare consultant, I think that why I think that is the best route for an expert in healthcare is because it doesn't require a lot of investment. If you were going to go buy a coffee shop, I tell you, you better have $100,000 ready to go, plus 6 months of rent and
Right.
inventory and all of that. But when it comes to consulting, you could really start that with minimal investment.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So you talk about this so beautifully, like there has never been any challenges. So let's unpack some of this. So tell us some of your barriers and your obstacles that you faced, the
Yeah.
internal and the external ones.
Sure. So I had to overcome not being as educated as those in my field.
Okay.
So I did go to college. In fact, I went to junior college for lots of different things. Remember, I was trying to find myself.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
then I went and started my bachelor's in healthcare administration. And I went all the way to the end. I had 3 electives left before graduating, and my business took off. So I never finished.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
I
it's
don't.
good.
So it's been interesting, and I always laugh because they always say nobody ever asks me if I have a college degree.
No.
They don't care. They just want to know if I can make their practice profitable. And guess what? I can. So they really don't care. But I always had to kind of deal with that in the back of my head, like what do you know? Everyone talks about imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
would pop in my head. You know, I remember one time I got a consulting gig, and it was a really big one. And it was for a large company. And I walked in, and it was like, you know, the suits, the guys in the suits, if you know what I'm talking about, like
Yeah.
all middle aged. And this was about 10 years ago.
Oh
And
wow.
I walked in, and they had these resumes, and they had come from these large organizations. And I sat in the boardroom, and they looked at me, and they were like, Claudia, so what should we do about this? You know, what they had hired me for. And I sat there, and I was like, I was talking to Jesus in my head, like, is this a joke? Like, is this, I was like, Lord, is this a joke? Because you know I couldn't pass algebra, and here I am consulting these bigwigs, right?
Yeah.
And it was just an interesting moment in my life because I thought, God can use anybody.
Yeah,
You just have to
absolutely.
know your stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I love
And
that.
yeah, you have to know your stuff, and you have to be passionate about it, and you have to be good at it, and you have to really care about the client's success. And I
Yeah.
think at the end of the day, yeah, so those were some of the challenges of like worrying, like, what if they discover, I don't have 15 masters, you know, you know, but yeah, it actually never really became a thing. And it's because I know what I know, and you really can't fake what you know. So
Yeah,
when you're speaking to your clients, they're gonna know whether or not you just read it from ChatGPT or you actually lived it.
absolutely.
So yeah,
Well, and
so
your gift made room for you
yeah,
and got you in that space. So obviously there was something that you were doing that they saw in you. So you had it already locked in. So that's really good. Though you didn't allow that to intimidate you because a lot of people would have been like, oh my gosh, I don't have a degree. And then they're like in there and now you can't even think
yeah,
because you've got yourself all, messed up and twisted
yeah,
up. So I really love your confidence because when you know what you know, you don't have to be concerned about anything because your value is in the gift that you contributed to that company. So that's awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
so that's awesome. So let me see. I want to talk about someone out there that has a dream, or
Mm.
they want to start a business or whatever it is, what do you think? Why do you think it's so hard and so
Mm.
challenging for people to actually pursue
Sure.
whatever it is that they're trying to pursue?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of different reasons we don't succeed at certain things. Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes we miss the boat, meaning like we weren't urgent during that season, and so we missed that opportunity. That happens in business. Sometimes we get stuck in the preparation, and then sometimes we really don't have a vision big enough
Mm,
to go out and do what is required to become a successful entrepreneur. So it starts with having a vision for your life and being able to see yourself in the future. So I have a funny story about that. So
yes.
before I fell into healthcare, I knew I was going to be an owner of a corporation and I didn't know what it was. So
Yeah.
I would drive through a part of my city where all of the offices were. And I would go shopping for my office where my staff was going to sit. I had no corporation, I had no staff, but I knew it was coming because I had a vision for it. And
That's
it was
good.
just a few years later that I had an office full of staff members. And I remember thinking, like, the Lord, He gives you a vision, but He says, make plans, right?
Yes.
He says, make the plans. He's going to take care of you and He's going to bless you and He's going to open doors and He works on our behalf. But He says, make the plans. I mean, that's in the Bible. And you
Yeah.
have to have a vision for that, right? If you cannot see it, you'll never ever get it. And it's sad because some people, they really just don't see it. This there was a pivotal moment in my life when I realized that exposure to business and high thinkers is really what has allowed me to achieve what I've achieved and to be fearless.
Right.
So exposure is really important. If you don't have people around you that are smarter than you, and I guess that's why I love hanging out with the doctors and the nurses because they're all so smart and brilliant. They make me better. And so
Well, that's
you
awesome.
want that. You want people to elevate you. And you'll do the same, right? For
Yes.
others. But that's super important. I remember I was at a candle party. Do you remember like the candle home party?
Yeah. I
And
do.
and it was the very first month that I hit 10K as a marketer. And it was very early. I think I had just launched. And a lady was sitting next to me and she's listening to the pitch, the candle lady saying, you can make $100,000 selling candles. And this is how. And she's showing and sharing. And the girl turned around and looked at me and she's like, I can't even imagine making 10,000 in 1 month. And I didn't say anything to her because I had just hit my first 10K, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool, right? But I didn't, and it was like she couldn't imagine it. But
Yeah.
now she'd been exposed to the lady that's telling her it's possible,
That's right.
right? And so it's watching others that have gone before you and watching their success and saying, that's possible for me because there is nothing different, right? Like they have the same, we all have sort of the same, I always say we kind of have an even playing ground, but it's all about knowing how to play with your own strengths because not everyone has the same strengths,
That's right.
right? So yeah, so anyways, it's exposure and I don't know if
Well,
I'm still
no.
on the same question. I'm
Hey,
sorry.
it's okay. That's it's so good. You have so many nuggets in there, but I am going to go back to vision because I think that is so critical because if you can't see it, you can't do it. You can't do what you can't see. And
Yeah.
so there's a story I wanted to share about the actual definition of vision. The late Dr. Miles Monroe, I absolutely love him, but he
Oh,
told
I
the
love him. I have his book. One of his books is on
yes,
my shelf.
yes, I have like so many of them, but because he really inspired me to really just own who I was and walk in my brilliance. And so he was telling that story in the Principles and Power of Vision about the little girl on the cruise ship, And he said the little girl, they were on the cruise ship, and it was like absolutely beautiful outside. And so everybody's like in awe because they're out on the deck looking at all the beautiful, nature and the skies. And the little girl is down there like tapping her dad, like, "Daddy, Daddy, I can't see, I can't see." And he said he finally picked her up and put her on his shoulders. And then she said, "Oh, Daddy, I can see farther than my eyes can look."
Oh,
And he believes that that's what vision is, the ability to see beyond your eyes. I love what you said, that
that's
you
good.
went and you visualized, you saw your employees, you saw your business, I mean, that's powerful what you did. You may not have even had a dime in your pocket, but you went and you visualized anyway. So I think you really dropped some really hard, solid wisdom for anybody that has a dream, because you have to be able to see it. If you don't see it, then don't run and do it yet. You know what I'm saying? Because you'll save yourself so much time until you can actually see it. Because if I can see something, if I know that, like, for instance, there's an apple that I'm looking for, and then I can go to I can go to a few different places for my apples. But if I can see apple, then I can say it's either a grocery store or maybe it's a computer. But that's more direction.
Mhm.
So I love what you said about that. That was so awesome. And the exposure piece, oh my God, that's so profound. So how did you get into those? Like, how did you expose yourself? Like, how do you network? How do people expose
Yeah.
themselves if they don't have any, like, people that they're hanging out with?
Yeah. Well, that vision will drive you to the right
Hmm.
folks.
Oh, that's
So
good.
if you have a vision for it, you're going to go out and you're going to make it happen. So, yeah, so I went, again, God plays a huge part
Yeah.
in the life of the believer. So, speaking as a believer, God had his hand on me the whole time. I simply had to have a vision big enough for him to help me along the way. A lot of
Yes, I
things
love
he
that.
did, I showed up and he opened the door.
Yeah.
So it's about showing up, right? Show up where those visionaries are already, where people are, where those dreamers hang out.
Yeah.
Go and join some groups. I know there's so many coaches out there. So, but the thing about coaching, because there's so much coaching, find a coach that is actually that understands you. So not
Yeah.
just somebody that has a great system, because all the coaches can show you like, hey, I got this framework, here's the system. But find the coach that understands, almost understand, can see and can understand your calling, right? So
Yes.
because otherwise you kind of end up a little disappointed that somebody didn't get you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that yeah, so the exposure part is a big piece. I really went out and tried to find out what other marketers were doing, how they were getting their business. Back then we didn't have ChatGPT. Today you can ask ChatGPT, how do I start this, where do I get the business, where do I go, and it'll tell you, right?
Yeah.
Back then you had to actually go out and search for it. So that's what I did. I showed up at networking events, and I
That's
asked for
awesome.
referrals,
Yes.
tons of referrals. Most of my business in the early years was just simple referrals. I went to one doctor and I said, "Can you tell your friends about me?" And I wouldn't leave without phone numbers. I'd say, "Well, I can I get their numbers now?" And they'd be like, "Sure." And I'd walk out with my leads and I'd say, "So and so referred me to you. He said you needed my help," and then and then there we would go. So
That's
you have to
awesome.
kind of you have to get out of your comfort zone and go out and find it. And there's just so many ways nowadays. We actually don't have any excuses, because if you don't want to leave the house, you can still network
That's right.
online.
That's right. In other words, no more excuses. Drop the excuses. It's
There's no
the time.
excuses.
Yeah, the time is now. So, okay, Claudia, I have a vision. So here's the person. They have a vision. They they do have the passion, but they don't have the money. So,
Mm.
what do we do now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I started my business, I started with zero capital. I mean, we were in a really bad spot, but I took my first employer and he became my first client. So, I mean, that employer that I left became my first client. So when I left, I told him what I was doing and I said, "Do you want to be my first client?" And he kindly accepted. So I didn't walk off the job without a client. So a lot of people
Okay.
will just walk off the job, they're done, they quit, and they've got nothing and
Right.
nothing coming in, and money will run out if you don't have something already in the works. So I always tell people first ask those that already trust you.
Yeah.
How can I help you? This is what I'm offering. This is my gift. This is what I can help with. This is where I have results. You have
Yeah.
some proven results. And how can I help you? And then ask them, who do you know that might need my services? So when you first start and you don't have capital, you have to be your best marketer.
Yes.
And you have to ask for business. Everyone says, "Oh, don't ask because you're going to sound salesy and you're going to sound." I'm sorry, but closed mouth doesn't get fed. You have to
Come on.
ask. Ask. There's all these rules, and I see all these like young gurus coming up, and you don't do this, don't do that. And I was
Oh,
like,
I know.
really? Because that worked for me for like 20 years, and I know that things are changing, and I get that. And the buyers are different. Everything is different. Even with coaching, there's a lot of coaches coming up, and it's great because the coaching industry is going to keep growing. And the
Yeah.
truth is, people need accountability with the way that
Absolutely.
we now have a plate full of all kinds of stuff. You need that accountability person, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Um,
well,
Go
what you
ahead.
were talking about, that making the ask, I took a women in leadership course, and that was one of the steps is to make the ask because it doesn't happen until you make the ask. Even my podcast, honestly, before I started it. So I did this event. I was kind of like the Oprah, and then I interviewed Shola Richards on that little platform. And so I pinged him, and I was like, "Hey, can I talk to you for like 5 minutes?" And so we had an opportunity to chat. And so I told him what I really wanted to do. And he was like, "What's wrong with you? Just do it." I mean, he just like was so like loving but firm.
Mhm.
And then I immediately made the ask, and I said, "Okay, can you be my first guest?" He
Yeah,
said, "Absolutely." And I almost dropped the phone
yeah,
because I was like, "Oh my god, I just gotta ask." And then I have just been asking, and people have been. It has been such a blessing in my life, just starting the podcast because that's starting something. You just
yeah.
gotta start something.
All of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And,
So
and never. What is it? What is it? Don't despise small
small
beginnings.
beginnings.
Yeah, it's huge to start something and to stick to it, right? So
Yes.
that's the challenge is that when we're entrepreneurs, if we don't find success right away, like I didn't in my 20s, I was just jumping from business to
Yeah.
business. It wasn't until I matured and said, "Hey, I have to stick with this." Now I'm, 18 years still in healthcare. It's because I stuck with it. Uh,
Yeah.
and a lot of times I put my blinders on. People still till this day ask me like, "Do you want to invest in this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to?" I'm like, "Nope,
Yeah. I gotta fix and
nope."
focus. Well,
Yeah,
because that's so important because that's with vision because people try to deter you off of your vision, and so I
mhm.
understand that you got to stay. No distractions, please. But
Yeah.
I think that's really. What did you just say? That was like so good. Oh my god! It just like totally slipped my mind. Maybe I'll remember it.
About just staying hyper focused. Maybe just like
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
stay in your
Exactly.
lane to sustain something long enough to find success.
Yes.
And
Okay, that's what I was talking about because like you stayed in that. So obviously there was a burning desire for you to
mhm.
stay in one lane for so long. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
I see a lot of people jumping from thing to thing. They get upset with this and then they go to the next. So it's really important for you to have that like desire or the passion or that that's your
your
calling.
why. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
you have
you
to
have
have
to
the
have
why.
that. Yeah, so
You
that's
have to
awesome.
have the why. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hey, because if you don't, you're gonna burn out. Period.
Yeah. And also, I just want to say that just because I hyper focused on healthcare didn't mean that there weren't areas of pivoting because the seasons
Yes.
will take you through different things. And there's always a season for change, but you have to still stay within. Like, I didn't switch clients, I didn't switch the type of clients. But when things change, for example, when I brought credentialing and contracting into my suite of services, I only did it after a law changed in California, and all of my providers were freaking out because they had to be in network for work comp. And so there was a massive need there that I knew I could fill. I already had the clients.
Right.
So that's not changing lanes. That's adding within the same, I guess, within the same niche, right? The same clients. You're just offering one more product, and you're not, I didn't go from that to, opening up car washes, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's sort of, so that's you can still pivot while you remain in the same industry.
Yeah, I love that. So, we're at the point in the show now that I love to like glean on wisdom gems. So, can you tell me Claudia's top three pieces of wisdom
Okay,
for
I actually
others?
wrote them down because I was like, well, I do have, I'm gonna look at my notes really quick.
No problem.
Oh, that was navigate. Okay, hold on. Okay. Well, so one of the things that I've learned, and I think that is wise, and is to actually ask for wisdom. So that's number one. So before we can become wise, we really should ask for wisdom. And I think that it's in James 1:6 or 1:5, where God says to ask for wisdom, and He gives it to us generously. Right.
Yes.
So, and he also in that same chapter, I believe it says that when we don't have the wisdom of God, we're anxious.
Yeah.
So number one is asking for wisdom. So you can't have it without asking for it. And what better wisdom than godly wisdom? So that's one. Number two just goes right underneath that, is that you have to have a solid foundation, because ultimately that's what keeps us going.
Yes.
Life is going to throw so many things at us, and things that are unexpected, and we're going to find ourselves in tough times. He says that we're going to go through tribulations and trials, but then He turns it all around for His glory,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So having that foundation, I think, really keeps you going. There were so many times that I could have quit. I mean, I got pregnant at 43 years old out of nowhere. We were
Oh,
blessed with
wow.
a child, and I was doing really well in business. And I got sick and got stuck on the couch. And I called all my clients, and I was like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna like stop. Like I don't have clients for years. I think I'm gonna just pause here. I don't know if I'm gonna come back." And yeah, so there was that time where I had to say, God, what are you doing? Like, why are you making me sit still? I haven't sat still in so long. But I had to trust. And then it was easy to come back when the season was right, because the foundation was there, and it was solid, and
Absolutely.
it was built on a rock. And that's God. So, yeah, so that's my second wisdom piece.
Wait, I'm so glad you shared that because I was going to ask you, have you ever wanted to quit?
Oh, yeah, a million times.
It's, yeah, so thank you for that. I love that story. Thank you.
Yeah, a million times. I once had a potential client. I went to lunch with him, and we were talking about my proposal and stuff. And then he said to me, "Well, I have one more proposal I have to review before I give you a decision." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, may I ask why you have to wait if you know that you really want to work with me?" And blah blah. And he said, "Because he's higher on the food chain than you." And he said it with a
Mm.
straight face.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what? I was like shocked. I was like, hey, he's gonna laugh. He's joking. Because doctors can say some stuff, and that joke it's a joke, so I'm gonna take it as a joke. But
Right.
he just was like, it was a male. He was male, so he wanted to give the male the opportunity first.
Mm.
And that day I was like so mad in the car. Well, first of all, I was like, my proposal is null and void. I didn't say
Yeah.
that to him, that I wasn't going to work with him even if he called me. But I was in the car and I was like, God, like, how do you just let people treat me like that? I don't deserve this, and why is that okay for people to think that way? And I'm having this whole conversation with God, and the Lord was just like, forgive and let it go.
Mhm.
And I walked away from that just like I could have quit. And the
Yeah.
enemy would have been like, you need to quit because you're not as good as the men. You're
Yep.
not, you're right. I could
Yeah.
have, so many things could have happened that moment. I could have just thrown in the towel. But I threw a fit in the car by
Yes.
myself.
That's okay.
And then I remember I turned that song on. I don't even know who sings it. It says, I'm bulletproof, nothing to lose. Fire away, fire away.
Oh, that's good.
And I sang that the whole way home. And I was like, watch me, like grow your
Yes.
competitor.
Yes, absolutely. No, I
Yeah.
love that. I know you made lemonade out of those lemons, so great job.
Yeah. So yeah, you're gonna have times where you want to quit. And I have had times where I fell on my face and cried out to God and I'm like, why isn't it working the way it worked for them? And we just all have different paths.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I'm still
And
here.
that's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that because I'm sure someone needed to hear that because they were on the verge of quitting. And
Yeah.
so thank you for that encouragement. Okay, your
You're
third
welcome.
one. Your third
Oh,
one?
okay. Now I gotta look at my. I think I'm just gonna come up with the third one.
Okay.
But I think we have to laugh at things that happen.
Yes. Yes.
Count it all joy, right?
Yes.
Like, and I'm not perfect. God forgive me if I stub my toe and I say a word I shouldn't say, and then I'm like, Lord, forgive me. I'm so sorry. Please, please, please don't take my blessings from me. you know. And he's just like, girl, stop
I
overreacting.
know. Let it
You
go.
need to chillax, right?
That's
um,
funny.
yeah, but I think just have fun with the gifts and have fun. Just enjoy them. I think we take life so serious and um yeah, and then we compare a lot, right? We compare
Yeah.
our life to others, and it's easy to do. I'm guilty of it. I stopped scrolling. I stopped watching because I could fall into that same trap of saying, well, look at them. They started when I did, and look where they're at,
Yeah.
and God's like, cut it out. No
Yeah.
coveting, first of all. No coveting. It's not allowed.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Right?
if you really think about it, I'm so glad you brought that up because I mean, especially like some of the women that I know, they love to compete. Like they love looking at each other and it's so energy draining, first of all, to do
Yeah.
that. And then what made me, I mean, I got delivered a long time ago, but what helps me is that I'm in competition with myself, being the highest
Yes.
expression of myself. And so if I'm not, I want to be better. So the challenges in life, all of the stuff that I have to deal with, it makes me a better human being. So that's the only competition that I will put my energy on.
Hallelujah, because that's the same here. And I think that
Yes.
that's one of the reasons why you can stay in business and keep continuing to get better.
Yeah.
Really quick thing about competition is that, and actually, Dr. Shantae wrote a post on Shantae Harris
Oh,
wrote a
okay.
post on LinkedIn about this, and I left a comment. But your competitors often can be your best collaborators,
Yep.
and they can often give you business that you didn't know, right? I followed my just show up motto, and I went to a networking event with other marketers that my doctor said they wanted me to go to, and I didn't want to go to. I was like, why do I have to go have dinner with your other marketers? Like, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, nope, just show up. And I went, and one of the marketers there actually gave me, I think it was like a $55,000 contract.
Wow. See?
Yep. Yep,
That
competitors.
hurt.
That's right. Go collaborate with your competitors because you like, yeah. competition, like those that are competing, uh,
I
they
love
sure they
that.
can win, but they're going to win alone.
Yeah, I love that though. I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so let's see. Of course, I want you to tell us what you're doing and how can people get in touch with you, and do you have any programs? Like, what do you offer?
Yeah. So I am still a staffing agency owner. So we still offer temp staffing to private practices and other healthcare organizations. And then I still consult private practices. So
Okay.
I still consult the doctors on how to make their business profitable, looking at different lines of services. So those are my two main business lines. And then recently, I just wanted to help the healthcare consultant like me. So I started kind of teaching like the LinkedIn stuff, visibility, some sales tips and things like that. But my heart's desire is really to create a community of healthcare consultants that want to grow together. And so I'll be launching a group hopefully in the fall. So right now I just have a wait list, so I'll send that link to you.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, just some good old accountability, and it will be faith based. So yeah, it's an
Okay,
exciting.
okay, I love that. Okay, great. Yeah, send that off. Make sure I put that down in the description. Well, it has been such an inspiration to hear all of the wonderful things that you're doing. I know that my audience will be extremely blessed by what you have contributed to us today. So thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
yes, and so we will put her contact information and everything in the description so you can reach out to her. And oh, I have to tell you, because we're not done yet.
Okay.
My baby is here. My baby's here. So I wanted to make sure I reminded people that you can still get your copy of Amazon if you need bulk orders. Let me know, and I'll put that information down there as well. Some people are getting it for their nurses for Nurses Week. So,
Nice.
so anyway, thank you so much, Claudia. Let's let you part to give us some parting words.
Oh, well, just stay in the game. And yeah, and that vision piece is so important. Write it down, plan it out, go look for it, go find it, seek it. Go into those neighborhoods where you wish you could buy a house. Take a picture of your favorite house. Start imagining
Yes,
yourself in there vacuuming.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That's some great wisdom right there. Thank you.
Or hiring somebody to vacuum for you, but you know.
Yes. Hey, at least you're in there. Either
I'm
way, you're in there.
Yeah. I'm Mexican. My mom requires me to vacuum on a daily basis, regardless if I have cleaning ladies that come and help me. I gotta vacuum every day.
Oh, that's so cute. Anyway, thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for listening, my listening
Oh,
audience.
thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, bye
Thank you.
bye.
Have a good one.
I want to thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of When the Moment Chooses You. I'm your host, Coach Charlene, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Each journey we've shared today is a reminder that when the moment chooses you, the possibilities are endless.